Good afternoon. I'd like to call the Tuesday, October 3rd, 3 p.m. School Board Workshop meeting to order. At this time, you'll please rise for a moment of silence, and the Pledge Allegiance, and the playing of the National Anthem. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So proudly, the twilight's last gleaming, whose brush stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare
Roll call.
Will Furry present.
Christy Chong present.
Sally Hunt.
Cheryl Massaro.
LaShaka Moore.
Okay. At our meeting, we will have proclamations. What do we want to do now with the legislative updates, since Ms. Cochran is not able to make it?
So, two changes that I would like to ask for is that we move 17.01 time certain as first, as we do have our financial advisor here with us to address that topic. And then 19.01, I ask that we move that as our second item, which is the legislative platform. We do have Mr. Sarah that is queued to join us on video, just to begin the conversation of what we should be thinking about for our homework to go. So I think that we still have that conversation, allow him to set the stage of what we will need to do, and then we continue the conversation on the 17th.
Okay, so we're gonna take 1701, you'd like that to be 7,
After public the
Yeah.
first public comment.
yeah, yeah.
And then have,
701A, maybe?
yep.
Look at that, 701A.
And then 19.01
And where do you want that?
to be 701B.
701B. Got it.
Just move both of those up.
Okay, that's 1901. That works. All right, and then we're gonna have proclamation then for Family Engagement Month. You'll have spotlight, strategic spotlight, and the Ed Foundation will have their spotlight.
Yes.
Approval of the minutes, we'll go through all that.
Yes.
And that covered any other additional changes to the agenda?
I do not have any.
Okay, so we're on 601, public comment. Do we have any public comment? Okay, we have no public comment at this time. Anybody here that would like to speak that did not sign up? Just to be sure. Okay, we're good. All right, so we're on 701A, which was 1701, the lease purchase of school buses. And we would like Mr. Walker.
We do have a team of individuals that will be a part of this conversation. So we have O.J. Walker, who is our Director of Transportation, as well as Ms. Warmick, Mr. Freeman.
Our financial advisor, Ms.
Yes.
Laura Howe, and Mr. Freeman. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members, and Superintendent Moore. If you recall, 2 months ago maybe, back in July, we did a presentation on the lease purchase of our buses. After that presentation, we had moved forward with the bid process that I'm going to let Ms. Howe talk about with you, and then we'll open it up for questions.
So through the presentation, thank you again for having me back today. As was mentioned, my name is Laura Howe. I'm with PFM Financial Advisors, and I'll kind of walk through what we went through in this process and talk about the results. So if we want to skip to slide 3.
Slide 3.
So we did distribute a request for proposals on August 10th to finance up to $2.5 million to purchase 14 buses over a 5-year term. We did also ask to potentially set up a master equipment lease if there was need for it, but today we're really focused on this because there's nothing that's come about for additional financings. Proposals came in on September 7th. The district did receive 6 proposals. There was Bank of America, Flagstar, JP Morgan, Regions, TD Bank, and Webster. And on the next slide, Bank of America did provide the winning bid, a 5-year rate at 4.2505%. An amazing thing about this, once they were the lowest bid, best terms and conditions as well, but this rate is also locked in until October 19th. And with what the market's been doing the past month or so, this rate would be significantly higher today if it wasn't locked in. So that's awesome for the district. The semi-annual principal and interest payments, so a lot of the bond issuances, we just pay principal once a year and interest twice. With the lease, we'll do principal and interest semi-annually, and that's $277,550,000 each February and August, which does line up with the other debt service payments that the district has. And the final maturity is August 1st of 2028. And on the next slide, you'll see the next steps. This will be brought to the board for consideration on October 17th, which would be held the pre-closing as well, when signatures would be obtained, and then the funding would be provided on October 19th. So if there's any additional questions on any of the process or bids.
Questions, gang?
Nothing on the financing per se. So on the closing of October 19th, the funds are made available, and the it's purchases 14 buses for over a 5-year term. So we're gonna order all 14 at the same time. Okay. Gotcha. And when will we take estimated first delivery of our first bus from the new fleet?
Typically, it takes about 280 some odd days from the time that we purchase the buses to the time that they are delivered.
Okay.
So we may see them around 2024.
And we'll reach out to Dr. Rouse as well, because when we initially looked at this, there was a possibility that there were some that we would get in a much faster turnaround time. So that's something that I think we can follow up as well.
And will these buses be retrofitted with some of the new technology that was demonstrated to us?
Retrofitted with all the specs, the predictive stop arms, and all of the bells and whistles.
And the cameras that can see
360 imagery,
360
yes.
imagery, and does it have that technology that would link with the sheriff's department if somebody passes the bus? A stop arm.
That's a stop arm camera.
Okay.
Yes.
It has the technology, but we have not got into an agreement with the sheriff in order to do that.
Okay, but it's
the
there.
technology.
It's there
That's correct,
if
correct.
that and when that comes about.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have.
Anybody else?
Just, hi, Mr. Walker. I don't think we've met yet.
Well, this is Mr. Walker's first meeting.
I do apologize. I thought this was your second meeting.
I apologize too, our Director of Transportation.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Jay is
I
with me
saw
this
this
time.
really nice man sitting in the chair, and I like, and so I'm glad that it's
We now know who
you.
it is.
It's you. Welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor to meet you all.
It sounds like you're doing good work, so thank you for that. I would just ask Will if that, I just want to make sure, Dave, that if that is something that we want, the link with the sheriff's office, is that, I don't know if that needs to be board approved or if that is under.
So a few weeks ago, I sent an email just saying that Mr. Walker and some other members of our team will begin just some preliminary conversations with the sheriff's departments around some of the pros and cons, some of the things that we need to be thinking about if we go in that direction. So they are just in the beginning stages of that. If and when we work through any of the things that we need to be prepared in order to move forward, then we would bring it before you for board policy adjustment.
It would be an MOU with
Yeah.
the Sheriff Department if we agreed.
Decide to do it.
Right.
Basically, you're on it.
Yes, we're working right
You're
now.
on
We're
it.
just
Okay.
really investigating
Yeah, it's
information to identify. We think about it immediately, like let's go. But what are the things that we're going to need to have in place as far as infrastructure in order to be able to actually do it? So we're in those conversations, and then if it's something we can do, we definitely will bring it before you.
Good. Well, I'm thrilled we were locked into that rate. That's great.
That seems
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
good rate for these times, yes.
Yeah, and just a reminder to the public that at the end of this 5 years, we own those buses. There is no additional lease payments that need to be made. We actually have paid for the buses and
Correct.
own them.
It's truly a financing, we call it a lease, so people get it confused.
Correct.
Like what you expect at the dealership, but it is just a financing that is for a loan for these buses.
The only additional question I have is, as we proceed through these next 5 years, are we buying more buses in addition to these, correct?
Yeah, so we allocate about $1 million. So what we'll do is we'll take the debt payment out of that first, and then with the residual is what we will use to buy new buses each year.
Okay,
So instead of buying 10, it could be 5.
gotcha.
I'd also like to point out that on our deletion inventory that we have today, I'm sure that you looked at, there's a 2008 bus that we are deleting because of just the maintenance repairs that we continually have with it, and it's just not worth replacing, fixing it. So that's one of the buses that we're replacing.
Yeah. Those old buses were $1 million last year to work on maintenance alone.
Yeah.
And that was, for the public's awareness, we went into a more in-depth conversation about this subject, and can go back and watch that, and we really addressed that our maintenance costs were getting extremely high on our older buses, and that partly justified going down this path
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
bring our fleet into current times. So.
All right, anybody else? I think we're good. Thank you all.
Thanks, team.
And we are definitely happy to have Mr. Walker on the team. He's,
Thank you, Ms. Moore.
yes, we are definitely happy to have you on the team.
Okay, now we're going to go to 1901. The legislative platform. Dr. Conklin is unable to be with us, but we do have, are we going to have?
Yes,
Is he
I know
gonna be
that,
online?
oh, yeah, he will be joining us.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
Online. Uploaded, as well as shared with you in your folders. What we did provide to you is just the last two, board platforms. I also included in there, our county's proposal as well, just so that you can see the format of it. But you do have the last two that have been adopted by Flagler School Board, just as a point of reference. And then I'll turn it over really to Mr. Sarah to lead us in this conversation.
The audio is a little off on my end. If it doesn't work, I'll end up calling in instead of using the Google Meet. I recommend to you that you adopt a platform. The legislature and the governor have tight controls on the state agenda right now, and for many good reasons. And so what we want to do is to tie into that in the ways that they would want us to, which is to identify one or two or maybe three very important local issues that are clearly local issues important to Flagler schools and not global issues or statewide issues. That's why we have our statewide associations to work on those things. Time-wise, we're a little bit behind schedule because the delegation hearing will be a week from Friday, and the superintendent will need to make a presentation there about us being thankful for what they did last year and giving a little bit of focus on what we're looking at for next year. And if the board and the district want to request a local project, the deadline for making those requests are mid-November. So we have about 45 days to get that done, which is not a lot of time, but the entire legislative session only lasts 60 days. So if we focus on what's important, if this is important and we focus on it, we certainly can get it done. A couple of recommendations that I have based upon things that other local governments have done and what our delegation has already indicated might be on the table for next year. And I would start with looking at the potential of a local project. The legislature has indicated strong focus around the new math instruction concepts and career and technical education, which the governor has been very focused on for his entire term. In addition, locally, we've looked at the Adults with Disabilities program and the need for a permanent facility as being something that the district has looked at in the past. And the board should look at those three areas in general and see if there is a project that you would all support that comes from those general concepts. In addition, there was a bill that passed last year that Senator Hudson was the prime Senate sponsor of that dealt with the sharing of capital outlay millage. And as that bill was passed, Senator Hudson indicated that he wanted to look at this year ways where that sharing could be from an expanded pot and not just a zero-sum game, which would be beneficial both to the district and to the charter school, and would also certainly support those companies that help us to do the maintenance and renovation work locally. So that's another area I would recommend that we have a simple statement on, encouraging the legislature to explore ways that that could be accomplished to the benefit for all. So that's at a high level, that's what I'd want to present to you as far as what your task is. We basically have 2 weeks to develop some draft language for you to consider at your workshop on the 17th, with the hope that at the meeting that you have at the end of the month that you would be in a posture to adopt a platform, which would give us time to submit the local project reform in mid-November to the House, and also to begin to promote your agenda with the legislature. This is not something that staff gives to you as a prepackaged, proposal. This is really something that you as a board need to build And one of the first steps in that process was determining your permanent superintendent, because the delegation wants to work with people that they're going to be working with for a while, and you giving her that vote of confidence will assist with that process of her being able to assist in representing you to the delegation. So with that, I'm available to answer any questions or concerns, and I've prepared a memo that I'll be sending to you before close of business today that will outline again what the next steps are, what the kind of recommendations are for things to consider, and to give the superintendent a clear up or down feeling for how you view the issues, and sort of the timeline of different things and deadlines that we're facing going forward.
All right, is there any questions at the moment?
Points
So
of
are we-
clarification.
Yeah, are we trying to pick, like, how many things are we trying to focus on?
I definitely think we look at, especially when it comes to a local project, we look at one thing that we're looking at for a local project. But we also, as you can see in our last, our previous platforms, that we are able to make recommendation for legislation changes as well, as Mr. Stara described. So right now, really for us, our agenda is for you to know as a board, here's where we are. Here's what it is that we would need. So it would be you going back, really thinking through, are there major legislation that we would like to, that really directly impacts Flagler schools in Flagler County? Are there recommendations that we make in that area? And is there any big program or platform that we want to ask for support from our current delegation? That's really the purpose of today. Now, Mr. Sarah, he will provide you with a memo of some of the suggestions that he's made. Our team will also send you, here are some areas for us to consider. However, we want to make sure that you have an active role in this. This is not something that, we just say, here, you guys do this. We want to know what your voices are, and we want to provide you, here are areas that we feel like we need to really work on. The thing is that we definitely are behind because we have delayed it, but we can work through that. I'm confident that we can definitely work through that. I've been in communication yesterday. Ms. Rizzo and I, we also talked through and looked at areas that we're already focusing on as either as the Education Foundation and the organization, that we can make recommendations to you that you could get behind and support, as well as an ask to the delegation. As for the meeting next Friday, this will be my first opportunity to be before them. So it will be just that. It will be a thank you for the specific areas that directly impacted Flagler schools last year, and an introduction as to who we are, who I am as the superintendent for Flagler schools.
I was at the delegation meeting last year, and Kathy's big request, Superintendent Middlestats, was to develop the local project, the one on the proposal at the bottom with delegation support, to find a separate location for our adults with disabilities program, because they're fragmented all over the place as it is right now. And it was well received, and I'm not sure we should make any necessary changes in that unless you really feel desperate to do that, because I think consistency is really important here when speaking to them. Even though this person has changed, our mission remains the same, that we need some kind of central location for our adults with disabilities.
And some of the possibilities that we've discussed and thought about is really, when we really target the need for something specific for our technical college, that support with our technical college will also be support for our adults with disabilities, because we can get a location for our technical college as well as relocate our adults with disability in a more permanent location that we have available if we move out our technical college. Again, those are ideas for things, but your voice is included in that as you think about what is happening here in Flagler County as a whole, as well as what's happening at Flagler schools. And I think it's important to note that even asking for something specifically for Flagler schools does not negate the ask that our county has or anyone else has, because we can also do resolutions in support of the ask that our county has as well. So when you look at some of the things, we know that we've been having this discussion about the need for infrastructure, and so we can put a resolution together in order to support that, and say that we as a school district, we support some of the asks that they have, because we know that as we begin to expand areas of Flagler County that we cannot currently reach, it also will benefit in us being able to also build schools in those areas in order to educate our students as our county continues to grow. So that's just kind of an overview of where we are with the platform. But when we come back together on the 17th, it really is going to have to be like roll up our sleeves and identify this is what our platform will be.
I know this is something you and I just talked about, but a big thing I'd like to see is the teacher salary increase. Just anything we can do to help better fund our teachers is something I'm interested in, because cost of living is high, so it's just something I'm interested in.
So I ask that you review the last two platforms and really begin to think through what your suggestions and your areas of focus, as Ms. Chong shared hers, what your areas of focuses are, and then we can come back together and create one platform that represents this board. Mr. Sarah is available to answer questions, have further conversations with you about this process or things that we've seen in the area, whatever it is that you as a board need.
So I've got a quick question, and actually, Mr. Sarah, you and Superintendent Moore are like the perfect people to answer. We have such a high percentage of students who are not reading at grade level, but we're not unique in that. That really seems to be maybe a Florida issue, maybe a national issue. So when I think about FTC and career readiness, and like, that's huge, and I am all on board. But also, if our students aren't reading, that's just so fundamental. But when we talk about a special project, what is happening just today with reading, right? Just because this is an issue, like, is that something that I just shouldn't even be thinking about because it's being taken care of, because it's well known that is an opportunity here in Flagler and in Florida?
No, I definitely think it's something that we continue to talk about. When we look at what happened previous session and the adjustment to the science of reading, the training that is going along with that, ensuring that all of the resources that are available in Flagler County and across the state, that they align with the science of reading. I think the state as a whole is really focused on that to ensure that the instruction that our students are getting, especially in those primary grades, align to what research says concerning the science of reading. So I definitely don't think it's something that you should not think about related to this. But when we think about it, is there some type of legislative ask that we're asking for the legislation to look at related to that? Is there a statute that is connected to, or how does the ability to read connect with maybe a bigger project when it comes to workforce development? I think it's all connected.
Well, so that was actually the exact thought that I had.
Thank you.
Was, do we have potentially an engagement issue that if we start students at the elementary level with
microphone. I'm sorry, her paper's on the microphone.
If we start at the elementary level with CTE, right, and we get students, if they are reading what interests them, will we see reading engagement go up? Like, is there something we could be doing where CTE, FTC, and reading, right, is like all combined. Because we're really just trying to get our students, the whole mission is career readiness, life readiness, all in a mentally healthy package, right? So that's just, I think I'm probably just more and more of a fundamental place with any asks that we would have. So, sorry, but thank you.
No, I think that those conversations are definitely things that we will discuss, and some of it maybe we can address several of the different areas of focus that you as a board want to bring about.
So what is the process then, just to nail it
Well,
down?
I think, that's what I was just thinking too. I think that what we need to do is you now have what we used last year. Some of these, like the number one under mental health, that refers to COVID. So we obviously can make some changes. Maybe we like that, but we might like life skills or what basically, Sally, what you were just talking about would be a good place to put that. So I would individually go through all of these, see what you like, what you really like, things you don't think are that important. And then when we come back at the next meeting,
The 17th.
then we will be able to narrow this down and get in there what we need to have.
For
Does
the
that
next
make-
meeting, we have to nail that down next
Yes,
meeting.
it has to be
so-
done next meeting.
So it's.
Yes,
right
it's
then
gonna-
or it's
Yeah.
not gonna
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna spend time really discussing that at the next meeting. Mr. Sarah will send you information to consider. I can do the same.
Right.
But we're gonna really have a conversation around what is our platform? What are those areas that we really
And
want to
I
go
would
after?
keep in mind too, that Casey DeSantis, mental health. We've got
Resiliency,
mental health,
yes.
Resiliency, safety. We want to go into the Guardian program at some point, we need money. Keep that coming, we need that to keep happening. And then you've got the governor, and he's going to follow a lot of the same suit, but workforce development, that's his big thing. Have these kids ready to have jobs. So those are the two major targets. We're there, you may want to find things, or you have to put something better to put in here. And that's get it down, so we can discuss it next time, and then we should be able to limit it down an average.
And we want to make sure that what we're asking for, we're already taking advantage of things that are already available to us. You know, when we think about the dollars that are available through CT, workforce development, all of those things, you know, we really should be capitalizing on some of the things that are already available to us rather than asking for something additional. So, you know,
Are we not today?
I think we can definitely do a better job
Okay.
of doing that. And so when we talk about asking for additional dollars for through the Office of Safe School, definitely you see it was on the platform before, but we also need to make sure that we're having the conversations around all the other things that have been proposed through the Department of Education as well as the governor, inclusive of Guardian, to make sure that we're capitalizing on things that are already available. That is just my
no-brainer.
recommendation. Yeah.
Yeah.
My only question is, we won't meet again now, and you're gonna meet, the delegation meets next week.
Yeah, it's 3
What-
minutes that I have.
I know.
So
I
it will
know
be
that.
a thank you and it will be an introduction for sure.
And
Yes.
maybe pick something that like that project, I think that project's crucial, because that's where a lot of the money would come from, into a project. If we can stay consistent, I think that'd be important.
Yes, and I will definitely share with you what I intend to share.
Mr. Sarah, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Just as far as process, I would encourage each of the individual board members during your meetings with the superintendent over the course of the next 2 weeks to highlight specifically what you want and what you don't want in this platform. And as part of my memo to you, I'm going to invite each of you and request that you set aside some time to meet with me individually about the items that you care about, and let's find a way to incorporate them in. I'm not so married to the previous board's adopted platform, and I think my recommendation to you is that we have 2 or 3 very focused requests, and that one of them be a local project, and that the other 1 or 2 be tightly related to things that are very important to Flagler County and much more important to Flagler County than the other districts in the state, and try to keep our focus in that area because it'll give our delegation clear opportunities to bring decisions back home and funding and other things back home. But you'll receive that memo this before close of business today, and I appreciate the opportunity to work with you. I hope that you'll spend a little bit of time with me over the next couple of weeks, and a little bit of time with the superintendent, with what's important to you, and we may be able to offer to you some kind of a discussion document for the next workshop that you can then discuss and workshop, so that we can then move to adoption at the end of the month, where all of you clearly can see your own priorities within what gets adopted.
All right. And that's a big trim. We want 2 or 3 from that. And it doesn't mean it has to be exactly this. It's whatever you think is most important.
Is this gonna be discussed at a workshop or at
Yes.
business?
Information first.
Yes, it will come to the
So,
information first.
did I hear Mr. Sarah right, that he would be available to speak with us individually?
Yes.
He
Yes.
wants
Yes,
to.
he wants,
Great,
he is gonna ask
excellent.
us to.
Yes.
Yeah, so that'll help each of us get to what you want. Okay? Any other questions?
No. Thank you, Mr. Sarah.
All right, thank you, sir. We're glad you were here with us, and we will be in touch.
Very good. Thank you all.
Okay, going back now to the agenda, we are on our 7, so we're 7:01, this goes into our financials. Ms. Womack.
Good afternoon again, Madam Chair, board members, and Superintendent Moore. We are here to answer any questions that you may have on 7.0. It's now 7.02 through 7.10. Starting with 7.
No, it's
start with the
701A,
imagine.
701B.
Let me just start, yeah.
701C.
C. 701C.
And then 701.
Imagine financials.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so we have, the first one is the charter school financials. Any questions or concerns? They're generally pretty consistent. All right. All right, next is purchase orders over 10,000.
I did have a board member ask me about a couple purchase orders here where we are using local impact fees for the Matanzas project. I'm going to have Mr. Bush come up and speak to those so that he can better explain. These start on page 8.
Yeah, I saw that.
And goes through page 11, 12, 13.
Good afternoon, hello.
Mr. Bush.
So the ODPs, which are under direct purchase, I'm not sure if y'all are familiar how that works. When the bid is out, the contractors are required to get quotes with the material, and that's with tax. So part of this project, what we're doing to save money is we will then get with the contractor and say that we want to do an owner direct purchase. So they have to then, the quote that they received for, let's just say a case of water, whatever, they give us that quote. We then, whoever that vendor is, we cut a PO to that vendor minus the taxes that they would have been charged. So that goes directly to that said vendor. What you'll see on here when the impact fee is broken down, those are different items that would have encompassed that particular PO and the amount of what that would have been. So you will see when we do, which I can share with you, that we were going to share with you on the 17th, but as of right now in this particular project, we're a little over $140,000 tax savings by doing this process. It does put there's more work on our department and with finance with doing this, because there are documents and paper to go through with the contractors, but we feel very good about the tax savings and where we're at, and wanting to continue to do this on projects.
Great. Is this something that we were doing, is this new with this, is this part of the addition at Matanzas, right?
Yes, sir.
Is this something that we've just started doing, or had we had this practice in place?
Well, since I've been in the district and since 2005, we have done this in the past, and it depends on how much the product is and what we can do, because there is paperwork and documents and stuff that we have to do. So we try to look at is there gonna be a cost savings? I mean, yes, we get the tax savings back, but what is that gonna cost us on clerical side on ours? So that's one thing in my department that we're looking at, because I would like to try to do this more often, especially when there's like large ticket one items that we can do that on, that will save us money. But this is the first one that this project is the first one that we've done in a little while.
Okay.
So you would not have seen this.
So
project.
on a much smaller project, the work that goes into doing it this way might be cost prohibitive if it's a smaller project. Is that what you're trying to say?
It would depend on the material. So I'm just going to use a backstop because that's what's in my head. Say a backstop at FPC. We were going to replace those posts, and let's just say that was a $100,000 project overall. But those posts themselves were $25,000. Well, that one item may be beneficial because it's one item and you're doing it, and it may be only a couple $1,000s tax savings, but a couple $1,000s adding up. If we can continue to do that on those particular items, then we would want to do that. What you wouldn't want to do is if it was like an electrical supply where there's wire and nuts and all of that, and although the cost is $25,000, but you have 100 different items, then that would not be cost prohibitive, because then there would be a lot of clerical work into getting that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have to look at each scenario and look at it, what the material list is and how much savings that would be to do that.
Well, I'm glad we're doing that, stretching every dollar and
Yes,
finding
sir.
ways that we can save, so well done.
Thank you.
The only question that I have is, since this is impact fees that's being utilized, is there any way to simplify what it is you're buying? Because we look at this, and if you take that big lump sum, that's a lot of money that's going out. Like, I don't know if you're buying cement, or if you're buying 2 standard poles, and I think that might help to utilize the fact that we're taking that money and using it correctly. And a lot,
So if you look in the description, it's, for the one that starts on page 9, it's all plumbing supplies is what it says.
what is it?
Plumbing
supplies?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you don't have to
In the
go
gray area,
any
yeah.
day,
Yeah.
okay, so that's how you're breaking it
And
down
then
in.
Correct.
on page
Okay,
8,
I
it
see that
shows
now.
bond beams and block.
Okay, that's
Correct.
fine. That's what I wanted to make sure, because you have to know what it is.
Yes.
I was just looking at the
At
overall.
any point in time, if there is a question, I mean, we would be able to go into a little bit detail more
Yeah,
than.
that's fine.
Because there's only so much that we can put on here, so we try to make it
Okay.
where it's at least understandable without it cutting off.
Can I just ask a question that popped in my head? You're talking about taxes, tax exemption. Like, what is this? What taxes do schools? Again, just learning. What taxes do schools pay? That
So we are tax exempt, and that's how we're able to do this. So a contractor, they are not. So
love it. Thank
So
you.
whenever they get pricing,
Got you.
they have, any
Pay for it.
material, they have to have tax
Now I
on
totally
their
get it.
quote.
Yeah.
That's
We're
where the
buy
tax
like I buy
savings-
my own paint, but then I hire the painter because I can get
Correct.
the paint cheaper or
Correct.
whatever. Okay.
So if we did not do this, and this is where sometimes it gets good, if we did not do this, we essentially would be paying for the tax.
Right, because
the
it's absorbed in their overhead.
Correct.
Yes.
And their
Love it. You
correct.
just, I knew that there was something here. I just needed to put it all together. So,
Good.
thank you.
All right, any other questions then on $10,000? Go ahead.
Yeah, just one more, just on the new vehicle purchases. Are these replacing
Thanks, Corey.
vehicles that we're deleting, or are we adding to the fleet of vehicles?
What page are you on?
That
Oh,
is
sorry.
on, sorry, I didn't have my place
Ford, I
marker here.
think.
That's for Ford. We were piggybacking, I think,
Yeah,
on some other.
We are,
Um,
piggyback, I know that.
Mr. Freeman, can you talk to that?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, on page 413.
4, did you say?
Yeah, 4 of 13, and it says Duval Ford LLC.
Yeah.
167,192.
Right,
Yeah,
all,
there.
all of these vehicles are replacement vehicles to our current fleet. our finance department allows, it gives us a budget each year on how we can come up with a replacement plan because our vehicles are aging. And so we look at, just like our buses that were costing us money, our white fleet is, we look at the same thing on how old it is, how many miles they have, how many repair parts that we're having to replace. So we prioritize all our white fleet vehicles. Steve Macero from the bus, from transportation, our fleet manager, we work together and make sure that that prioritization of those vehicles is fair across the board with either high school and the different departments but primarily looking at the age of the vehicles. So these are all replacement vehicles.
Okay, so the ones that they're replacing, are they being sold on those platforms that you mentioned?
They would most likely be sold at an auction.
Okay,
Right.
gotcha. So they're still functioning. They're just getting to the end of our useful life.
That is correct.
Okay, and this is is this part of our 5-year plan for these vehicles?
Absolutely,
okay,
it
so
is.
it's all in there.
Yes.
And are these being purchased outright, cash? These vehicles?
Yes,
Okay.
this is
Yes.
capital funds. Right.
That's all I have.
Anybody else? A couple things. We have all the new FYO administrative costs in there. Is that the same amounts that we had been paying? Is there an increase to any of those? They're on page 2. I think Mr. Reeves probably needs to help us with that. I just want to know if we've increased the budget or we're right where we need to be, where we were before.
For the FYO budget. That's, Chairman Sarah, board members, Superintendent Moore. At this time, we don't anticipate any changes to the budget that's already approved by the board.
Okay.
There is, in the funding process, they make up the difference through their fundraising efforts throughout the year.
Is there an increase to that, how much they have to make up, or? So we're pretty much status quo?
There is an increase this year, correct?
No, when we redid the budget, there's not from last year.
Okay, so it's the same, okay. All right, that's all I wanted to find out about that.
And the line items here for some of the for the director, it's showing the full amount. Now those amounts are based on their time billing, so that's just the allocation for budget purposes?
Yes, it's a blanket purchase order, so as we get their invoices, they will be billed.
Okay.
And then the board approved this back in, I think, August. So part of that total budget, which I think, Chairman Sarr, is what you were pointing to, is made up, like Mr. Reeves says, from the fundraising piece, which is the Strings internal account.
I do remember, though, it was a workshop that I attended virtually, that the FYO directors were asking for 17,000, I forget, it was a 7. We're asking for an increase in either admin salaries or budgets. It just seems like there was an ask for an increase, so.
There may have been prior to me taking it over, but not after that process.
Gotcha, because it was just an ask
so
at that
There
time.
wasn't a
We're just
presentation
there.
that we had, there was an ask for
Yeah.
that.
Right.
But it has stayed
That
flat.
is
Okay.
correct.
Start over. Okay, all right, very good. And the only last thing that I have for you, and it's probably
Thank you.
Mr. Freeman, or it could be Mr. Bush. The last 12 and 13 is the payments for Matanzas renovations. Okay, it's the additions. And I just wanted to know, right now we've paid $151,278. So I understand they're like ahead in this building project?
That's not what we paid, that's the amount of the purchase order.
Okay, yes, all right. So I just want to find out, time-wise, I heard we're ahead in this project. Time-wise, they're looking pretty good.
We're doing very well. We are planning on doing an update on the 17th.
Okay.
Doing a little PowerPoint of where we're at with some pictures and a little timeline of where we're at.
Is the contractors, they get benefit of finishing early? Like a lot of times through projects, building projects specifically, if they meet an earlier deadline, they get an amount of money extra?
There is no bonus or anything like
Okay.
that. The only thing that they would not have the cost incurred on their end, so the
That's
the,
fine.
the PO that they had would be, whatever they didn't spend would be there. So there is no additional bonus, if you will, if that's the right word.
Okay.
For
And so
finishing
we're
early.
just sitting on that PO now, and again, they'll take away from that, and we need more for electrical, you'll put more in. That's how it works. Okay, perfect, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all I have. That's it. Okay, vendor payments, 703, anybody? None. 704, deletion of inventory. Okay, I don't hear any there. Moving along, we're going on to 705, finance budget amendments. Everybody all right there?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. 706, professional development travel. No questions? 707, district financial statement. Hearing none, we're going to 708.
708 and 709
Audit.
is
Yep.
the 22-23 audit for the Ed Foundation and the auditorium.
Okay. So we're gonna do, the Ed Foundation is first, 708. I don't know if everybody had a chance to look at that audit. If they have any questions on that,
No questions for me in
that looks good. We all use the same auditors. I guess it only runs around because everybody uses the same ones. Okay. 708, we have 709. Anybody have any questions about the Flagler Auditorium Governance Board audit? None on that either. All right, I think that does it for you ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, going on to academic services, 901, student progression plan, Mr. Stefanczyk
And Ms. Bassadet.
and Ms. Bassadet.
Good afternoon, Chairman Sarah, Superintendent Moore, board members. Similar to many things that I bring up to you, the board is charged with approving the student progression plan, which is basically a way of capturing the local, state, and federal requirements for students to enter, progress through, or promote, and graduate or exit our school system. We update that every year as statutes change, rules change, and new situations come to light, and that's what we have before you now. There's a couple pieces that we wanted to highlight. Also, so all the changes are in red. If they are removed, they are stricken through. Otherwise, they are additions.
So the first area to highlight is on page 13, and it falls under partial enrollment for students. And we've added this piece as a result of conversations. If you scroll down just a little bit more, we've added this after conversations with parents and students and faculty at our high schools when it comes to what it means to be a full-time dual enrolled student and how we define that to ensure that our students are meeting the criteria to be full-time enrolled, because a dual enrollment student might take different caseload than a traditional high school student or even a virtual student.
One other area I want to highlight is page 47, which is a change by the state to the graduation requirements. And it's not so much a change as it is they've bifurcated the requirements pages into two separate ones now based on student cohort. And this was as a result of statutory changes and the change in state graduation requirements for assessments. So these pages, these flyers are directly from DOE, but they outline the requirements students must meet in order to graduate through our school system. So this is not in red, but it's the direct copy of the flyer itself. So this document will be open for a while for public comment and for you all to look through and pose questions until we meet again, or until this goes to the board for approval, I believe.
And how will the general public get to these
Through board docs.
Through board docs?
Mhm.
Okay.
This is the way that it gets noticed through, and it's been that way as long as I remember. But should you have any questions about anything that you see here as you look through it the next couple of weeks, please feel free to email the Director of Teaching and Learning, Jeff Reeves, any questions or comments you have about the changes or what's in there or what it means.
Anybody? We good? We have time to look at this and digest it a bit?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. Vote. Chris, you stay. School improvement plans.
So at the last meeting, I presented the school-wide improvement plans. Those haven't changed, but this is just for the good of the public, that these are plans used and developed by the school to guide their improvement process for the year. Also allocates some funding from our title schools and how those will be used to improve the school on the various goals they've set or metrics they use to measure their success. So this will be coming before you on October 17th for formal approval.
Chris, are they going to come and present their plans? When will that take place?
Yep. So part of the school improvement process is at the start of the year, they develop their plan, they implement it, and then after winter break, when we get back and we have some more additional results and student data, they kind of monitor where they're at, and that's a mid-year progression or mid-year reflection of their progress, and that'll be presented to you all as a spotlight.
After winter break?
After winter break.
Yeah, and they'll have then 2 fast test assessments too to
Correct.
prepare,
Yep.
which should be interesting.
Yeah,
The
I mean,
first time.
it
Yeah.
should provide, there's a lot of data sources they use. It depends on the school on what they set. Most of them use the fast progress monitoring, but they also use course grades, student grades,
Yep.
various things they have. It's all aligned to the goal. Maybe it's attendance data, referral data, those things. But by that point, we'll have enough to determine if their implementation is going well, and if not, what do we need to do to address it or change direction to reach our goal.
Any questions for Mr. Stefanczyk? Thank you.
One more thing.
Okay. District assessment calendar, one more.
So this is an interesting thing. You've all actually approved this already, but after you approved, actually the day you approved it, the state came back with some errors they found in the template they created. They've amended those errors and now require you to approve it again. Nothing has changed substantially from that. There is no additional testing that we must do. It's purely just the way it looks.
And this can be found on FDOA website, correct?
Correct.
So we're just format and clerical
There
errors?
was a timing issue. They had the wrong amount of time spent for the statewide science assessment for grade 5 and 8. Everything was a little bit short, but they've rectified that, so it's a little bit longer by, I think, 10 minutes. But that was the gist of what changed.
And this information is on our website as well.
Correct.
Is it on
Yes,
our website?
it's on our
too?
website.
Excellent, that's
Yes.
even better yet.
It's not yet. Once it's formally
Will be,
approved,
yes.
then we
Will
have
be.
to post it, and then we send that to the DOE saying, hey, this has been approved by our board.
And then it gets
Here's the
posted.
plan.
Excellent. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
904, approval of reproductive health curriculum. Ms. Alves.
Good afternoon, school board members. More. So I am here just to give you an update on the reproductive health and disease instruction process. So prior to July 1, the school board, you all would approve our reproductive health resources and disease instruction resources. So before July 1, as in last year, 2022-2023, we brought educators in, we chose the resources, then we had public review of the resources, and then we brought them to the school board and they were approved. So according to House Bill 1069 and some changes to the required instruction for statute 1003.42, they now go to the Board of Education for approval. So September 8th, I believe, they had a memo that they sent just giving us a little guidance as to how to submit the resources. So we were kind of waiting, we were kind of in limbo, not sure. We knew that July 1 it changed, but we weren't sure exactly what it was going to look like until that September memo. So we submitted our resources. They were due by the 30th of September. We submitted them on the 18th. And what we submitted were the resources that were approved last year. So we asked for a little bit more guidance from the state, but we really didn't get very far with it. So we figured since these were approved by the school board previously, and our teachers were comfortable with them, we would submit them for approval. So we are now waiting for the Florida Department of Education to come back with the approval of those resources. So let's see, I've made a lot of notes, but I think I just talked out of There was one small change that we made from the previous progression, and we started puberty in the past in grade 4, but we've now changed it to grade 5, just based on some neighboring districts that we've used. So now it's starting in 5th. There's puberty through Procter & Gamble, which we've used for a decade or so, resources, and then resources through Discovery Education that we've submitted to the state, as well as just our science resources, because we cover a lot of the reproductive health as far as body systems and those types of topics through our science classes. So we've submitted all of that to the state, and we're kind of waiting at this point. There will always be an opt-out process for our parents. So once we get some guidance from the state, we will do our due diligence, and we will post everything online for parents to be able to see, and we will have an opt-out, both a written opt-out as well as a digital opt-out for parents that choose to opt their children out of that instruction, which will by no means, they can't be penalized or any of that based on that. And we have a really good communication process that all the schools are aware of, as far as approximately 3 weeks before instruction, they let their parents know, they make sure that they know multiple ways as to how to opt out if they so choose. So I can't offer anything other than just the change in the process, and we're kind of in a holding state at this time. We have notified schools that typically our instruction doesn't occur until after spring break, so we have a little bit of wiggle time. There is one school that has health on the wheel for 5th grade, and I speak with this educator on a weekly basis, and he's waiting patiently. He, is holding off until we get that approval for our resources. So, any questions for me?
So parents, they'll be able to see all the curriculum online?
Yes,
and be able
they
to
will.
I have a related, unrelated question.
Okay.
When I was running for office, I don't remember who, but they talked about, at one point, the public health department offered to partner with the schools to do HPV vaccines for students in an opt-in manner, and that we, as a board, maybe turned it down. I did that when we're talking about that. That just
Sure,
comes to
just
mind. I
kind of-
also have a newly turned 12-year-old, so that's just top of mind too for my family. And I just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, I
'cause
think
found
that
it
would probably
interesting.
be something that maybe we would talk about at our health advisory committee meetings, because that's when
we did
yes,
this. We did
I
that
believe so.
before, and the board did vote it down,
Yeah.
figuring that they could individually go get that themselves.
What is, Superintendent Moore, you've been in school districts, a long time. What is that relationship, that partnership? What is that role that the school maybe plays? Because I get that, right? I mean, parents can also teach their kids math, but they choose to send them to schools to do that. So we don't have to discuss that today, but I would really appreciate your thoughts. I would love to learn more on really, for us to be good partners with our families, to offer that perhaps as a service on a strictly opt-in basis. I would appreciate at some point knowing your thoughts on it, if that's something that maybe we'd want to bring before the board, again, if the health department's even still doing that. That's just an important piece, I think, especially for females. So anyway, related, unrelated.
Yeah, and we definitely, that can be, I know that you're the liaison, right, for the, who's the liaison for?
I think Ms. Chong is.
Ms. Chong, okay, perfect. So that'll definitely be something that will be discussed through those SHAC meetings around some of the resources that we do partner with. I mean, we do partner with things such as the flu shots and those things and an opt-in, but we want to, it's the pleasure of the board, but also making sure that we're not providing so many services within the school day that we're not able to also meet the educational minutes that we have. But we, if you guys want us to bring back, I know we're going to be doing a update soon on some of the things that we are already doing through the student services department and some of our practices as far as screeners and all of that. We can bring some additional information at to other things that we provide, like our dental services that we do provide through strictly opt-in, as well as Plu and any other thing that we currently do, so that you as a board can get a scope of that if that's appropriate at that time.
And speaking of what you just said, I mean, Greg Blase with the chamber, I don't know how many months ago, I think it was at Bunnell Elementary, did a whole community health fair. You know, not, so Superintendent Moore, to your point, not during school time, but we used one of our facilities. And so whatever that partnership, right, would need to look like, but I think that, I know I would be interested in making sure we're doing what we can for our young people, for sure.
And I'm sorry, I forgot one more thing. On the board docs, I also included a PDF of exactly what was submitted to the state by grade level. So if that's something that you'd like to take a look at, and if you have any other questions.
And if you want to, you as a board want to re-review any of that information, contact Ms. Alves, as well as, you know, our families and our community members, you know, as that information begins to get approved, they definitely can reach out to Ms. Alves directly, and she will, you know, schedule time for individuals to be able to review it.
Absolutely.
And we've done that, I mean, several
Yes,
opportunities
yes.
for individuals, but it's still there and available.
Yeah. And we'll definitely do that as well once we get some more guidance from the state.
So this is just an update. It won't come back before you right now. We're just wanting you to know where we are in the process, because it's something we would have already had a conversation about.
We would have already had approved them by now if it had gone the way it had before the statute changed. So just wanted to be transparent.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Before we move on though, Chair, I just wanted to, since we're talking about health services, you know, I did receive an email from a parent at ITMS regarding some health screening. And, you know, as we talk about these type of services we offer, there's concerns about us managing the opt-ins and the opt-outs and making sure that they are processed. And because this parent was not happy that for health screening, she claimed that she had opted out
Last year, yes.
Then her child was pulled for the health screening. So, you know, these are the areas when we start going into areas outside of education where we open up ourselves to mistakes like this. And, you know, if anything that we're going to do in this area has to be rock solid, opt-in for the parents, or if they're opt-out, that we make sure that we
Our process is there.
Right, and so that's just something so important. And I'm sure there's other parents that would express that same view.
Hugely
right?
important.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I agree.
Did you make a comment that was happened last school year?
That was something from last year, but the parent, I believe that this parent is just advocating that we ensure that the process this year is followed and that we have measures in place to ensure that those mistakes do not continue to happen. One of the things that we're really working hard on is the development of a platform for online forums. We've pushed many of the forums through that process so that we have a better tracking system to that very point, and we're not chasing paper versus online, that we continue to work through that. But we have developed procedures related to that to communicate back to the families on the areas that, you know, if they've opted out or if they've opted in. So we have made corrective action from what happened last year.
Okay. I know Dr. Conklin had mentioned the possibility of up front in the beginning of the year having these consent forms then ahead of time, so that we don't necessarily have to do these incrementally, since we have a calendar when we expect to do these things. So
yes, and that is what we're working on. I'm kind of working behind the ball on it. I will tell you, our team has done a phenomenal job. In 6 weeks, they built the entire platform for us to do it, and so we definitely will be in a better place to get ahead of some of the forms that are needed, and definitely in a much better place this time next year to have everything that we know of in a platform where families can go in, they can make their selection. They will also be able to go in, and we already have this, and families are utilizing it, having them have the ability to go in with a two-step authentication to be able to make any changes that are necessary. So when we started to roll that out over the summer, right around July, when we began to roll that information out, we had families asking, well, why do I have to give my driver's license number? Because that was a part of the two-step authentication that we are doing with that. So we're definitely in a better place than we were last year, but we need to get to the place that we have them all up front, as Dr. Conklin has brought up and as you remind us of today.
Okay, and just to add to that, as we're developing the system, you know, when you have a lot of things to acknowledge, right? These things that are about health and are just kind of outside what most parents, in the sense of outside of educational focus, right? That these be very highlighted, maybe up front, made clear that they're on their own form, that some parents know exactly what they're opting their child into, and it's not just kind of buried into a mix of a lot of text, right, and fine print. So just to be as transparent to what they're opting their child into on these specific things.
Yes. All right, go for it. All right, we're going to 905, the articulation agreement with Cambridge ACE and International Baccalaureate. Mr. Reeves.
Ask Ms. Phillips to join me, Mr. Deason.
And Ms. Phillips.
Good afternoon, everyone. Ms. Moore. Before you today is our articulation agreements. Mr. Freewood had the opportunity to wander through technology a week and a half or two ago and saw Ms. Phillips, myself, Mr. Deasing working through this process together. And so just want to kind of tell you where we're at with this and what it is, because this is the first time we've had agreements like this for IB and ACE, but it does mirror what we've got with our other colleges and universities. And so we have a long history with IB and ACE. We've had hundreds of our students enjoy the benefit of the programs, and they provide our students rich opportunities for opportunities academically in their experiences. It can translate to bright future opportunities, and as well as college credits towards their degree of their choice. Many of these students have gone on to be recognized as merit scholars and have participated in colleges like Stanford, Georgia Tech, UNC, UF, and FSU. So to kind of tell you what they've had as far as their experiences. In the past, what we've had is a letter of understanding on our campuses between the organizations and our schools. And as we began this process to kind of bring these things together and in-house, back in June, we started making phone calls and having conversations. Ms. Gavin was a critical part of that, as far as just working with their attorneys to navigate this process together. And so I'm pleased to tell you at this point we're now in a better alignment with our other agreements. We have them already with DSC, UF, and USF, and those other organizations. So this kind of brings and provides our program some parameters and some understandings and safeguards, just procedurally, and along with responsibilities, both for us and for them. So if something was to arise, we have guiding documents to kind of help us navigate anything that comes up. And so those are what's before you today. And through that work for the last several months to get to this point for this. And we'll tell you we've been working together with our other universities and colleges like Daytona State College, Embry-Riddle, USF, UF, as well to bring their articulation of the new statutes that typically identify with the Parent Bill of Rights, specifically in student privacy. So just wanted to make you all aware of that, and that's what these documents are. The first of many that will be coming for you in the coming weeks as we continue to finalize these negotiations with them. Any questions?
Is there anywhere to see the curriculum for these? Or?
So in the articulation, there's links as far as on Exhibit A. If you were to go to, on our website, I can tell you that might be easier. On our website, there's links under curriculum, teaching and learning, that highlights that information of how to get to those sites and see what's provided for our students as far as those links and what the curriculum is. These are college level courses, And as such, they do have a different standard as far as expectations, much like College Board and Daytona State or the other universities, because they have the opportunity to earn those college credits based on their testing.
And you said they're coming into compliance with our state statutes.
They are. One thing in particular that is student privacy. And as we were working through this together, Ms. Phillips, myself, Mr. Deasing, and working with our other providers, right? Not just our agreements with articulation, but also just any of our platform students working on, right? And so when we got to the spot, we're in complete alignment with it, with the exception of one issue, which is the statute says that the articulation agreements or the data has to be stored onshore, meaning in the continental United States, not in Alaska or Hawaii. And so we're going to be providing our parents the opportunity to opt in to that, with the understanding that's kind of outlined in the statute that allows for that, because by nature these are international programs. And so there are servers here in the US, but there's also servers for them in the UK and in Ireland as well. And so there could be student information that's stored offshore, but there gives our parents the opportunity for an opt-in option to that to participate, because Cambridge and ACE are not required for graduation. It is a program of choice, and so we'll provide our parents an opportunity to choose to opt into that program.
Anybody else? All right, very good, thank you both.
Thank you.
All right, out-of-state travel, ACTE Career Tech Vision 2023 Conference. Mr. Blair.
Good afternoon, board. Teachers, I'm sorry. Superintendent Moore. Any questions about the conference requesting attendance for the ACTE National Conference in November through December?
Just trying to see where it is quickly.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's in Phoenix, Arizona.
Phoenix.
I apologize. I know I type very small.
Yeah, it's like, but it works. There it is, okay.
The cost will come out of our Perkins grant allotment.
Okay.
So this will be no cost to the district.
Perfect. That's what we always like to hear, no cost to the district.
Should have led with that.
They should have.
They should have led with
Always
that.
lead with that. There's no financial cost to the district. This is what we're trying to do. Any questions? That's easy. Thank you, Adam. We're good.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Reynolds, out-of-state travel, annual meeting, NCTM 2023 annual meeting and exhibition.
You get me again.
Mr. Reeves, we like having you.
Thank you, ma'am. So Mr. Reynolds is one of our new additions to our teaching and learning team. Specifically, he works with as a specialist for our Math 612, and he attends the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. And he's a member of that organization, and we're traveling in October to be in Washington, D.C. for that event. And while there, you get the benefit of learning new ideas as far as information and staying on top of current and future trends in mathematics and the fields of that. So there's a lot of advantage to that, bringing that to us and then back to our campuses to work with our staff.
I have a question.
Go right ahead.
Again, related, not related. From a state statute perspective, does the board have to approve these out-of-state travel? We're talking about $95 for parking. I mean, you have like a $50,000 threshold.
Yes, so board
Why-
policy,
why-
policy is all out-of-state travel does come before the board.
We don't have to prove it.
Yeah.
But it has to come to the
Yes.
board.
Okay,
It is
well, if
covered.
that's board policy, that's just maybe something for us to think about looking at, because, you know, we have a chief executive officer who I feel confident can weigh in appropriately on a $400 trip to Phoenix. So I'm in the sense
Saying it
of,
shouldn't come to the board?
I'm saying I don't know that it is you know what? Yes, I don't think that this needs to come before the board. I just think Adam was here for I don't know how long to sit here to present on a $500 trip to Phoenix. So we're using
Which
Adam's time.
We're not paying it either.
We're not paying it anyway.
Right.
I just think as we have lots of work to do, we have a very competent superintendent in place. I would recommend that as a board, we change that policy.
I was gonna say, that's a policy revision, so we'd have to find that policy.
I'm gonna
We will
bring
share
that up
that with
under,
you.
I'm gonna
Yep.
bring that up under new business.
Yeah, I'm just saying, that's what we'd have to do.
Thank you, sorry. Related, unrelated.
It's all
All
good,
right.
it's all good.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. I don't think anybody,
There's a few more trips before you.
okay, yes, we saw them. Okay, next,
Any-
908,
Here you
overnight
go.
travel consent, FPC, MHS, SGA, please.
So these
SGA.
are their annual SGA trips. It's great leadership opportunities for the
Yes,
students.
leadership.
And before you are, there are two requests. One is coming up here in November for FPC, and the other one from the Kansas, their region is not until February of 2024.
Is there any reason why they're not in the same,
Well, it's based on the size. of
the size
campus.
school? Because
Mhm.
if that'll change as our size adjusts.
It is.
It should.
Right.
Yeah, it should, okay. All right, and then the last one is FPC FFA.
So we have two trips for there as well. One is in November, the other is in December. And these trips are one for FFA Forestry Contest and FFA Leadership Conference.
Any questions? The more they get out, the better it is for us.
Absolutely. Wonderful opportunities for our
It is,
students.
absolutely.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
Thank you. All right, we are at operational services and consent. Everybody good, or do we need to break?
I'm okay.
Everybody's okay? Okay, good. 10:01, proportionate share agreement. Mr. Whitson, you'll be here for a little while.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Ms. Moore. We have three this afternoon, more to come. The first one is a single-family development off of Seminole Woods, State Road 100. It's called the Enclave at Seminole Palms. And you see the agreement in front of you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
How many?
This one is 182 single-family homes,
How many students?
How many students?
and the students generated here, it looks like 40.
Oh,
15 at the elementary level, 10 at the middle school, and 15 at high school.
We're gonna start building up at FPC. Okay, all right. Any questions? 10:02. Portion share, evolve.
Yeah,
at
this
Palm
is
Coast.
an apartment complex, and this is 256 units, I believe. And this time I brought pictures for Ms. Hunt and anybody else that wants to look at it. Pass them around.
We like pictures.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I was able to, the developer's been really anxious to get this moving, and so I've been talking to him quite a bit. It looks like a good project, so this is moving forward. It's going to generate, looks like 15 students total, 7 elementary, 5 at the middle school, and 3 at the high school.
Where at in Palm Coast?
This is off of Whiteview
Okay.
Parkway,
Yep.
Palm Coast Parkway in Whiteview.
Got it.
And it's near US 1, there's a map in the agreement. I think they have it up on the
Yeah,
board here.
that would do it. Any questions?
You want these back?
Yes, ma'am.
Pass it back around.
All right, and the next one, and actually the last one today, is Seminole Palms Phase 1 and 4.
Yes, ma'am. This is another one, single-family development near the Enclave. It's not in the same, it's got a little bit different footprint, a little different land assembly, but it's going to be 237 units, single-family. It's going to generate 52 students, 20 at the elementary school level, 13 at the middle school, and 19 high school.
I wasn't kidding, we're gonna have to build up. Do you hear that, Mr. Freeman? We're gonna put a second floor to FPC, or third in some cases.
It's interesting you say that, Chairman Sarah, because I was talking with a parent the other day, and he asked why we were giving the attention to Matanzas and why not FBC. And my just kind of off the cuff thought was Matanzas, it seems like it's in the location where the most growth is happening, and so that, and like FBC area has been kind of developed, but
Yes.
No, they're all developed.
It kind of like it's maybe all being
They want to
developed.
The overall goal is to balance the population in both schools. So they each have equal amounts. And Matanzas was too small to do that. They couldn't equal the size of FPC. So they have to build so they can get and balance those sizes. And therefore they'd be.
Yeah, the pattern of growth is, where the growth already is, but then it's also moving west.
It's everywhere.
Just kind of lots going on. And also, one other thing that I found interesting, we got an email from a parent as far as the duration of time his student was on the bus. I did not realize that we have students who are within like Bunnell maybe, who really are even closer to a whatever town high school. Like I didn't realize
how long some of our
some of our bus route could be. And I was actually kind of going to talk to you about, can we like figure out one-off?
I keep looking over there at Ms. Rizzo. She's going to be like, I'm not coming to these meetings anymore. But I think it would be, and we've talked about this before, I don't know that it was this year, but looking at getting that bus tour back up so that we can see really the scope of the district and some of the places where we are busing our students from and where we're busing them to for our schools.
And are there creative solutions for those kind of outlying, but I think that'd be fantastic, because it wasn't until I got that email and actually got on Google Maps and was like, what? That's crazy. So, sorry, quick aside, related, not related, that's my theme today.
Whenever you're ready.
Well, I will just say this, just for the board's information, that every development that comes through, I look at transportation, and Mr. OJ is my new friend, and he and I do a lot of talking, and in fact we were out at Grand Reserve the other day. Because you have situations where they're already developed, but they weren't developed to proper standards. So anytime I get a chance to comment, anytime I get a chance to coordinate, I'm doing that. It won't fix it right away, but maybe we'll start heading in a little better direction.
Yeah. It's just, again, real quick, with the bus thing in particular, it's interesting because per this parent, under state statute, we only have so much time, right? But we then also only have so many buses, and it's very expensive, and we've got, so it's just, we're kind of getting into this area where, man, things are so tight anyway, that when we've got someone 40 minutes or, whatever it is, but then we also can't have them on the bus for 2.5 hours. Your job is hard.
It is.
Basically.
And we are looking at and exploring what other options that we can use and still get funding without having to take on a traditional bus out to those locations, maybe to reduce some of the time, but we
it's
do.
A thing.
It is. It definitely is.
We're looking for any legislative relief that may
absolutely that may be something
that
we look at.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Woodson.
Thank you.
Mr. Woolahan, FSSAT SRA. You want to explain all your letters so everybody knows what we're talking about?
Of course.
Thank you.
Especially it's very beneficial. Almost a full year, I keep 3. Good afternoon, Chair, school board members, Superintendent Moore. The FSSAT is the Florida Safe Schools Assessment Tool. It is a tool that is developed by the Florida Department of Education that is a focus around school safety. There's incident reports, assessment reports, compliance reports, all ran through the Office of Safe Schools and each school safety specialist in each of our districts through the state of Florida. There is a timeline per Florida State statute that the board does have to acknowledge and adopt and approve the completion of the school security risk assessments each year. So we have 9 school sites plus our charter, so 10 school sites that we are responsible for completing a school security risk assessment, which is about 445 questions that we sit down and we acknowledge and where we need to improve at on hardening our schools, where we can do better, what are our findings, how do we improve from last year, what do we need to look forward to, where do we struggle at, what do we need, everything is really surrounded by funding as well. And what comes out of this report in December, we then have to acknowledge to the Office of Safe Schools on how many years really do we need and how much money do we need. And I think it's all, it takes it to legislation and that we still need hardening dollars. For your information, the dollars in 2021-22 grant dollars for the school hardening grant was $183,726. Last year it actually dropped to $89,410. We have been informed that it is looking like it's going to go back to that $21-22 amount, which is very beneficial because for the last several years we've been using those dollars to increase and improve and enhance our school security, specifically with our front lobbies. This year we did wrap up Belterre. So if we go to the next slide, I'm not going to get much into our findings. I can meet with you individually about our school security risk assessments. We have completed those. But the recommendations is really to continue to add and enhance exterior fencing at identified sites. The installation of bidirectional amplification systems, which are BDAs, which will improve and enhance the communication of emergency personnel. That way, if they are in a certain location of the buildings, they will not lose radio frequency. Continuing to upgrade our front office vestibules at the identified sites, and installation of access control systems. As you know, we are piloting that here at the district office, but that is something that does come at a dollar amount. So before I do take any questions or comments, I do want to thank the Sheriff's Office for completing the security risk assessments. Per state statute, it's only required every 3 years. We go above and beyond. We do a walkthrough with our Sheriff's Office once a year. So we do go above and beyond what state statute requires. And that's Detective Brian Dinker. He took over for Commander Lutz that has been doing it for the past several years. But Detective Dinker, he's done a phenomenal job. Sergeant Meehan, Commander Naraki, they all were on the tours with us as well, and each SRD at each site. So I do want to give them a thanks for completing those. So, any questions?
Seen some fencing going up this week. Looks good.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, Buddy Taylor.
Yeah, good. So that was a big project, and I don't know if Mr. Bush is still back here, but that was something that we identified that really needs to be our focus point, and not just additional fencing. They're even talking about now is a 2-layer fencing approach throughout the state. So fencing is always going to be a concern. How can we improve fencing? If we have 3-foot fencing, should we go to 6-foot fencing? And we identify those sites in our reports and how we can improve and enhance that layer. So it's good news. All right, so this will go before you on the 17th, and then I do have to report back through our FSAT, which is the Florida Safe Schools Assessment Tool, that our board took action. And then if there is any recommendations that you guys are seeing, please let me know, because there's a section that our school board can we can fill in.
That's good. Anybody else? All right, thank you, Tommy.
Thank you.
Tommy.
All right, going to Human Resources, Mr. Ouellette. Personnel items. I'm sure there may be a few questions.
Board, Superintendent Nacero. Ms. Moore, as you know, for the workshops, this is a working personnel items document that is updated daily. So this is a snapshot of where we are right now. As far as appointments, reappointments, as far as retirements, suspensions, resignations, since the last time we had a board meeting.
Where are we staff-wise right now? I mean, how many teachers do we need?
Teachers, we're pretty stable in the fact that we need right around 24 teachers. And the other category is paraprofessionals.
Yeah, paras.
We are doing a virtual instructional fair. We're averaging 1 to 2 interviews a day since we started on last week. Not necessarily matching up one for one with our needs, and unfortunately a couple of them are folks that looks like we've hooked them for the beginning of next year. We are working.
Sit empty
Not necessarily. You never know who's going to move from Indiana or so tomorrow, but we are continuing to work that process. Transportation has requested that we stand up a job fair particular to just them. And it's more of a need to kind of replenish the pool of substitute drivers, so that we are continually have, on deck circle, I guess, for transportation. So that will be happening in the morning of the 16th. We're in a much better position than many districts, but we are not at 100%.
One of the things that did come up at the community forum was around vacancies for some of our classroom core classroom positions. So we are having a conversation on Thursday at our principals meeting around our next steps to ensure that those students have continuity of their education with a certified individual in those classrooms. So we did get that feedback from an individual at the community forum, and we are addressing that so that you as a board are aware that if we do have classes where students have been without a teacher for half of the quarter or the quarter, we are going to be making adjustments to ensure that we have continuity of instruction in those classes. And that conversation is being had with our principals on Thursday of this week at our principals meeting.
Anybody else?
Just a quick question, Bob. We were still in some union negotiations. Anything that comes out of that, has that already gone into effect, or when does that go into effect? I don't remember.
As far as changes to the contract?
Changes to contract,
That
whether it's
happened,
salary, benefits?
Yeah, all that happened the day after you guys approved it at the board meeting.
So that has already been implemented. Do you have any feedback on, is that helping at all with recruitment, or has that not really moved the needle?
I'd say the last 2 contract negotiations have helped us a lot.
Oh, good.
As far as where we are with teacher pay in comparison to surrounding districts.
And para, that you find that it has, because didn't we have some changes for paras?
We have.
Yeah, we don't have any.
It's too early.
Yeah,
really
any
kind of
data on that yet.
Any data on paraprofessionals. I know that we have internally done some things as far as expediting and creating capacity so that folks who don't fully qualify for the para position can take their qualification test in a more timely manner. So we worked with technology services and FTC to make sure the testing center has more capacity and that we can get people tested quicker. We also, on another note, we have Josh and Kim Anderson from my office are headed out to the job fair over at Flagler College this week as well. The feedback from the job fairs, along with our folks from the other folks in effect as far as HR managers, is that the job fairs just don't generate the kind of foot traffic that they used to. Even the Great Florida Teach-In, which is the second half of the year, doesn't have the kind of foot traffic that it used to. So we continually need to reach out to new ways to corral teachers.
And there are different things that also have come through the state with allowance of some of the apprenticeship programs that will allow for us to connect with some of our interns in non-traditional ways. And when I say non-traditional ways we didn't do, last year or the year before that, to get some of the individuals who are interning with Daytona State or any of our surrounding colleges and universities here to work with us while they do their internship, or get them plugged in to be able to work once they finish their internship as they await graduation. So we continue to try to do creative ways, but a lot of it is, especially for our local colleges, is around relationships, making sure that we are in communication with our local colleges and universities when they are doing their roundtables on things that they can do better, for us to show up and be a part of those conversations, so that we just keep those relationships and the individuals that are graduating through the education programs that they are considering Flagler County.
Do we, and I know I brought this up before, so it's a two-part question. It's one, does Angela have the budget she needs to do whatever creatively needs to be done for recruitment? That's A. And then B, I hear a lot about us going locally, right? And yet there are a bunch of, students in Wayne, Nebraska at a teaching college there who are freezing every winter, who dream about living by palm trees. So, do we really just exclusively stay within Florida always for recruitment? I realize paraprofessionals, we're not gonna get to move here, right? That has to be a local recruitment, but at least from our salaried, whether it is instructional staff or even district staff, do we just literally stay local, or do we go out anywhere else?
Well, we're local, and then we are on the free platforms. As far as a budget for advertisement, public schools don't traditionally, other than Florida Virtual, that's really the only district I know that has a substantial budget for
doing
advertisement.
Yeah, but we don't have any limitations that would prevent her from being able to do whatever is necessary to reach those individuals.
The reason I say is, in my background, the company I worked for, we developed relationships with certain specialty schools, right? So if it was merchandising, it was, university, in Arizona and Brigham Young, and right? Like, what are those schools where we know we are gonna get people we want? And so, we identified relationships with those schools, and we just, like, we're there, we're building those relationships. So I just, I guess that just goes back to that budget conversation, right? So if Angela, she's the person, right, who does this, right? So as Angela has kind of some maybe out of the box thoughts, does she have some travel money? Does she have what she needs? Because I'm going off of, Bob, what you said, that, hey, these traditional means are not really doing it anymore. And so I think Angela's brilliant, right? So I know she's up to the task, but does she have the resources that she needs?
And I think one of the things that we're currently looking at in the pipeline is that the state is currently working with a vendor where they are going to stand up an improved posting board, for lack of a better term, that will, as a state of the districts, will be able to plug into better, and that will be more user-friendly for out-of-state folks to access as far as when we advertise our vacancies. It's another one of those products that's a function of the Power School folks that are working with our evaluation system and some of the other pieces. So, in the future, we should be able to come to you with additional information about how that posting board, I think, will help us reach folks a little bit better.
Yeah, good.
Last year, we were very excited about the possibility of international students and international teachers coming here. They just graduated, a lot of them. Any movement in that at all?
We've spoken to two different companies. We weren't, I think, in agreement that they were at a place where they were ready for school district level here, in our opinion.
Yeah.
So we're still,
Working it.
working it. but-
Was it because they couldn't supply the teachers that we needed in town of Dashner, or were they not up to our standards?
Up to our standards. The first question that we've asked when we met with these folks is these are established folks that have a pitch that we go through with, and the question we ask them is, okay, can you point us to HR directors and who have you've worked with that will kind of share their experiences, and that's a lot of times where the conversation stops. We haven't, we've worked with school districts in Texas. Okay, so can you supply me the names of these folks that we can speak with? And there's no follow through because we want to know you're an established group, so let us talk to those HR departments, and that's kind of where the stopping point has been in the past couple presentations.
Well, I remember the last time we had this conversation, there was a company that we identified that we might like to work with, but they were just too high in demand and couldn't supply the teachers to us. What happened to that company?
They're still Volusia?
They went with a couple larger districts.
Yeah, so they can
Volume.
get more money. I mean, they have larger, Volusia is one of the schools, and they are obviously far larger than us, so they'll get more money from them than they would working with a small school.
Okay. So
Yeah.
revisit that. One more thing, on this report, can you add, after effective date there, can you add their hire date into this report also? Yeah. Add another field there for.
There are two different aspects to a hire date. So we can add the original hire date to the district, but sometimes it may be different than the hire date to where they're leaving. So for example, I could have been hired to the district in Old Kings, 5 years ago, and then recently I transferred to Bunnell. So I mean, the original hire date that we put next to it may not be the entire length they've been at the specific school there or department they're leaving.
Well, yeah, I think probably the original hire date would be most fun. What I just want to see is when they see somebody, a resignation or something, to kind of get a perspective of, is this a new person that just decided to leave, or has they been here for a while? That would just be helpful to.
I understand. Will do.
Any other questions or comments? We good? All right.
Thanks,
Thank
Bob.
you. So we're going to.
Can we take 5 minutes, or do you think we're close
Yeah,
to?
yeah, because I don't know well, we only have one more.
I don't know how long it's gonna be.
Yeah, I don't
You need
either.
5 minutes, I think we can take 5 minutes.
You want 5 minutes?
Yeah.
All right, 5 minutes. 5 minutes and we'll get back. We'll start back at 5 up. at this point.
That's my
So,
gavel.
moving along, we already addressed 1701 and 1901. So we're going on now to 1902, the attorney's contract review. Mr. Ferry.
Okay, so as the board has tasked me, I reached out to the FSBA and also some online searching and found about 6 different potential attorneys that would be qualified to review the termination area of the school board's attorney's contract. And after interviewing them, some had conflict of interest, whether through associations of Ms. Gavin and where they are doing legal work for, or they couldn't take this on, and I got about 3 that were willing to take it, and I settled in on the law firm of Schutz and Bowen LLP, attorney Dan Norby. And did you all get a copy of the?
We just did. We just got it.
So we looked at different ways to approach this, and it seemed that they seemed to have the best option. So what they decided to do is, for the review of the contract, they were just going to do it for a flat fee of $5,000, and they will give a memorandum of different scenarios after reviewing the termination clause on the outcomes of those, right? Potentially. Also, because there was requests for board participation with one-on-one conversations, built into this 5,000 are 3 hours of board communication, right? So if a board member wants to meet one-on-one through a Zoom or a phone call, however it works out best for you, we have that time built into this. Anything beyond that, we will be billed at their hourly rate. But based on, I received the questions, that, number one, I don't know whose questions they are. They were just all written out there, and so it's just a list. So once we execute this engagement letter, those will be forwarded on to make sure that the responses that they give us in their memorandum address those questions. And but as soon as we engage them, we would be under attorney-client privilege, and they will meet individually with board members that would like to have that option. I would recommend, if we want to keep this within the $5,000 that is budgeted here for this, is that come prepared with very direct questions, because as soon as you start talking to the attorneys, the clock is going to start ticking. So, but I felt that the 3 hours would be sufficient based on what I gathered from everybody here at the table. So
That's 3 hours, all of us?
total,
Together?
yeah, total. So I mean, essentially, it was kind of an hour for up to 3 board members, right? And I've already talked to them in the sense of giving them the instructions, the will of the board. So I've already had that communication to get this started. So I may or may not need that interaction directly, more to rely on the memorandums that they supply ultimately at the end to make a final decision. But because there were requests for that time, it's baked in there. And if we need it, we can still get it. We're just going to pay for it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So.
Right. Okay. Does this need to be approved as a contract, or can we go through Patty?
Patty, you can come up and.
I would like to add one more thing too before that. We talked about that. Reading the contract is for full disclosure, as from my District 2 seat, not to represent the board, but I did ask Ms. Gavin because mutual agreement was something that was clearly written right there, right? So that you don't really need an attorney to decipher that. So I did reach out to her to see if there would be mutual agreement. She did respond with something that she may consider, but I will let her bring that forward if that is the case, if she'd like to, because it was outside of the scope. It was not for full termination. It would allow her to have another position. And so because I was tasked with looking at just the termination clause, I didn't go any further with that, but I just want to be clear, open and transparent of that conversation. There may be a mutual agreement, there may not, right? It would depend on what the terms are, but that is one of the remedies in that clause. So I thought I would start that before we went down this road. So.
All right, first let's see what we have to do about this.
So since it's under 10,000, it doesn't have to go to board for approval. That's 10,000 and over.
We can tell you basically consensus.
Yes. So
work and we can make this agreement.
So two things that would normally have to be signed by the board chair or the superintendent. The only other item to know is the terms of engagement. Typically, all of our contracts are reviewed by our board attorney if they're not bids and things. Chris reviews contracts for RFPs and bids, but as far as the terms of engagement,
we don't know.
I mean, someone has to put their eyes on it.
Well, it wouldn't be fair to ask Ms. Gavin to do that.
I'm not suggesting that. I'm just something to think about.
Is that something our paralegal can?
I don't even know.
I don't know about
I don't know.
Lorraine is shaking her head. No.
Is this something beyond your capabilities or not? I don't know.
Teresa Rizzo has attorneys, a part of the Ed Foundation. Can we phone a friend to just get a second set of eyes on this?
Oh, I was wondering about, yeah, that's a possibility. We gotta find somebody. Chris Wilson, he does work for us too. He works for the district. I'm sure he's gonna charge, but.
Yeah, it's just, that's what I would recommend.
We need to get somebody. Yeah, we need to get somebody. To be fair, just to make sure before we accept this.
So just to also add, I gave them some timeline, and one was to get this before this meeting, so we would have it to present. Secondly, that because we have this as a placeholder on the next meeting, that they would get that memorandum determination of that termination clause before that meeting. If we desire to have that happen, that has to be done in a timely manner to have this reviewed by whichever attorney we choose. So,
do you know of anybody? I mean, we can talk to Teresa and see if she knows anybody.
I think that any of those individuals are going to want to be under some level of contract as well, not necessarily.
Are we getting into contract? Do we have to have, we're basically, it's a I don't know that I see this as a contract as much as a service. They're charging us $5,000. It sounds like we're going to try to keep it within that $5,000 by way of, as a board, not going over the 3 hours allotted. So, I guess, do we legally absolutely have to have?
I would assume that the terms of engagement are on their end to protect them, because that document has to be signed as well. If you look at the very last page.
The terms of engagement is to be signed.
So I'm sure it's a standard part of their contract.
Okay, but don't we have just outside counsel that we use regularly, that we already have an agreement with already?
We can definitely do that. I think we can
pay for it. Yeah.
We can reach out to.
Yeah, I'll have Chris reach out to some of ours that we contract with, and just get some pricing. And I mean, I'm sure.
Just a review, like
Yeah.
that is standard practice.
Right,
Right.
right. I don't
Shouldn't be
anticipate that would be a
terribly
large
expensive.
cost.
Yeah, like.
Yeah, I
should
just
be
think
maybe
it's.
an hour tops.
Yeah, I would just highly recommend that being done.
Sure.
Yeah, I think somebody should, just in case.
So I'll have Chris reach out to someone tomorrow.
Yeah,
I'll keep you
the
guys
sooner the
updated.
better, right.
So from a timeline perspective, because I think what we were hoping was to work toward, we called it a placeholder for the business meeting, but I think with the hope of working toward being able to have what we need for that line
Workshop,
item.
Yeah, for our 1 o'clock information.
And then also for the
And then-
business,
And it should be on both agendas.
also on the business meeting
Yeah,
end.
it should-
Did you say
So-
there was something else we were still waiting on? That, what was the termination clause or something you were?
Well, no, the termination clause, that's the scope of the work for this law firm.
Okay.
Is to help us understand.
We're not waiting on anything else from them, though?
This is the engagement letter. We'll be waiting on their review of that clause, but they can't start that until we
Until we
get this
sign it.
to them.
Correct,
So that
exactly.
whoever we hire, because we have that scheduled for is the 17th?
Yeah, 17th.
Yeah, 17th. So to give everybody hopefully at least a few days, if not more, before that meeting to receive this
Sure.
report.
So I'll have Chris reach out to some of our contractors tomorrow and see what we can work with, knowing the time is of the essence, so.
Right.
Who, since we appointed Will, does the chair need to sign this, or can Will assign this?
The board chair.
The board chair. So does she have to be in session to sign it, or can she sign it
No,
whenever?
because it's under $10,000.
Okay.
So any contracts or PSCs that are under 10,000, it's just like if this was a personal service contract, it would go to director of finance, or signed by the director or principal, director of finance, and then the superintendent, and there's one more in there that I'm missing. Board chair.
So, my understanding is we're gonna try to, as soon as possible, get eyes on this, to get the chair comfortable to sign, at which point that
We'll get it
start
sent
them
to them,
in
and
the
then
ask.
it starts their
Yes.
work, and then at that point, individual board members can schedule a time
Right.
with the attorney for the one-on-one.
Will Lorraine be hooking us up with?
We can arrange it that way.
Okay.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Okay, so if you can work through Lorraine will work through us to schedule stuff.
Yeah, I'll just give her all the information, and so she
Yeah,
can
that
get it
makes
to you
sense.
directly.
And I will send a follow-up email tomorrow after Chris is able to contact some people, just to keep you updated on that situation.
Okay.
The only thing and this has nothing, that's fine, we can process it and that'll work, and I'll make myself available so we can push this as quickly as possible. The only suggestion, and something I want to plant, it basically is a seed, is prior to my arrival, actually, and long-term discussion between the past chair and superintendent, was to consider the needs of the district and hire a staff attorney. And maybe this is the time we really look and dive into that. Because as it is now, Ms. Gavin's responsibility, primary responsibility, is to the school board, us, okay, and the things that affect the district. She spends a great deal of time working with Ms. LaShaka or the superintendent's role, staff. She does both, okay? Not that I'm looking forward to spending more money, but in today's litigious society, we may want to consider that. We hire, or we relocate our current attorney to be the staff attorney, which would help. Then she could do she could be on the negotiating team, the bargaining team. She can't now because she represents us. That saves us money there. So these are things to think about, but then we would have to figure out how we would get our representation, and it would give her protection. It's a thought.
Well, I in that format, that is has been my vision from the beginning to get there. We haven't had that conversation,
Right.
but now this time to have
Now
it.
it's time, yeah.
I believe it is necessary for us to have our school board attorney to be representing the school board, and we do need to have an attorney for the district. But I believe that is a separate position, and that the superintendent, anyone that fills that role should have to apply for that position, because and be under their control. Because right now, regardless of what everybody thinks, right, just in the general scheme of things, if our attorney, the school board attorney, is underserving the district, they have no control over that other than to come to the school board and say, hey, and I have not heard that. I'm not saying that that is what I've heard. I'm just saying, but it kind of sets the district back in efficiency if they feel that they're not getting enough service from somebody that's serving two people.
Well, I think that could be part of the issue, because we have now grown to the point we're a lot bigger than we used to be. We're going to continue growing, and I think that we need to consider that as really a major situation, which I was not aware of until I started investigating contract and where we were, how we get here, and that was the information that was given to me. So, I mean, I think it's something we do need to consider, and it might be the better way to go. As far as, you know, having to apply, I'm trying to figure out everything we can do to not get us in any kind of contract dispute or liability,
Well,
primarily.
so just real quick, if we're talking about an attorney or a firm or whatever that falls under Superintendent Moore, my understanding is we would maybe, just like when Bob comes up, we would be approving the position, but beyond that, that Superintendent Moore then takes it and then she makes those decisions.
A staff position, as it has been done there's a lot of schools that have them, districts. A staff position is under the superintendent. The superintendent controls just
hires,
everything.
makes all of those choices.
Right.
So really, what
Right.
is then our process of? I mean, I'm getting that there's at least probably consensus, right, to do this. So, is it looking at the budget? Is it getting it on? Do we need to approve it on?
Consensus for what?
Do we need to, at a business meeting, get consensus from Bob to approve that staff attorney or firm, or just?
I think that's a decision that the superintendent would make.
But what we need to do is develop the structure, which means, we would need job descriptions, because the job description we currently has does it all. Literally does it all, you know, and it's impossible.
It's a new position.
Yeah,
that
it
have
would
to
be,
created.
so a staff attorney.
You would create that position.
Correct.
And just like any other position, you would bring it before the board for approval.
Absolutely.
So, okay.
The one other thing, though, it's going to take is time. This is not something that gets done because when we're considering a new position, and then we also have to figure out how we're gonna legally protect us. Because then we would be hiring an outside firm, you know, and how's that all gonna financially impact the district? And they would be our representation. That firm, like, there's a lot of firms, and they all do, you know, they do 50 different kinds of law. And you need somebody, you need a group like that, because you might have a construction issue. You need a construction attorney. You know, you might have employment. You need an employment attorney. You have IEP. You need an educational attorney. By the time you get done, you're looking at 4, 5, 6 different things that you may need attorneys for as a school board, at us, to protect this district. So we would have to figure out this whole format, how we're going to do that.
But there are attorneys that cover these areas that specifically serve as school boards, and other counties do that. So I mean, that is definitely, it's not a totally way out there scenario.
Oh, no, it's
Yeah,
not.
to have an outside counsel.
No,
for the
you
school
do.
board, yeah.
You need-
So,
need
but
groups.
I'm in agreeance with you in the sense that I think it's time that we look at that structure for legal protection for our school and the district, and look at that for no matter whatever the outcome comes here. But I agree, we want to do things, we want to move the will of the board, and at the same time, I'm hoping that through this review of the contract, this will give us the information we need all to make a decision, right? And that's what we're here to do, to get counsel.
Okay, so where we stand right now is then you'll work on trying to get some legal eyes on that for a set amount of money, and then it should not be expensive. And then once you get that, you call me. We'll go through and make sure we have all the T's crossed and I's dotted, and then I'll sign. Then you'll get it to Will, and then Will, you two will communicate and get on board. And then Lorraine has to be kept in the loop so she knows what's going on, because she's gonna keep the rest of us intact, correct?
Sure.
Does that sound plausible?
With the
Yes.
goal of this being on both the 1 o'clock and the 6 o'clock.
We have to go through this to see where we're at.
That has been the direction of the board.
Yeah.
It currently
Right.
is not a published meeting, but we do currently have it on both. Because
Both sessions.
both,
Yeah.
that was the
That
ask.
stays the same.
Yep,
Okay.
even if we later have to pull it or do something differently with it, it is there.
Right, but we, and it really is important to me that if they were gonna move in this direction, you have to have just cause. If you don't have just cause, that puts us at legal liability.
Well, that's what the attorneys are gonna
Yeah,
answer
but
that
that's what I
question.
mean, that's
Yeah.
why, and then Sally can do her bit.
That's
this
why
week.
we're doing
And maybe we do, maybe we don't, but
All
that's
of
the
us,
thing.
yes.
Yes, fair enough?
Yeah.
We good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we have a process. All right, we are up to, we don't have any action from there. Old business.
I have something if nobody else does.
Go right ahead, Sal.
And I'm gonna put this under old business, I think that's where it belongs. At the last business meeting, we had public comment around, from a parent on a code of conduct infraction. And I spent a lot of time talking with that parent, I think, to kind of learn the situation. So I'm gonna bring up something that I think I've brought up before. Parents do not read the code of conduct, like word for word, I'm guessing, right? And so something that I've brought up before, does Ryan have anybody on his team who can produce an animated video or some type of video or something, a user-friendly highlights reel of the code of conduct? And so just to explain this a little bit more, we have had students making threats, right? We have young, emotional students. If I don't get my way, I'm going to X at the school, right? Or in this instance, we had a student who used an inappropriate word that is tied to, more severe kind of stuff, but I don't think was used in a way, right, that was anything other than maybe something I saw on TikTok and I'm repeating myself. The point is this, because it's a tough subject. We have thousands of students. I don't think we can go case by case on everything and say, well, Joey didn't mean it that way, right? Or Betty was just having a bad day. Like, I think we have to have rules that apply to everybody. But are we providing our parents with a tool that they can sit their student down and say, listen, we're gonna watch this video together. Here are the, from a threat perspective, a behavior perspective, a language perspective, for them to be able to have a sit down, because where I'm really torn with it is, I understand we have thousands of students and we have levels and here's your consequence. And I know we have to kind of handle things the same way because we have a lot of students, but we also are talking about an individual kid and their life, right? And I can't imagine a situation where we have a student who, they did what they did, and now this has become this really negative, dark time in their life because maybe they weren't kind of properly prepared for the seriousness of making a threat or the words that they're saying or the behavior that they're choosing. So I have brought this up before, I'm going to bring it up again. My preference, and Lashaka, this is your territory, right, not mine, but I would just ask that we take a better look at how are we communicating code of conduct to parents in a way that we are more likely to get the message across than a booklet that, and do we do that today, or is it literally here's 20 pages of content to review?
So we do send the information out to our families. We do Families do have to sign that they have read the code of conduct. We do review it with our students, maybe not the entire document, but we do review the code of conduct in our schools, in our classes, a part of our rules and those things. When we say threat, some threats that are made are things that are going to automatically go into the realm of law enforcement, and law enforcement is going to respond as appropriate. When we talk about concerning behavior, as we are trying to use more on the school district side, when we think about going to this to a new Florida model, when we start talking about concerning behavior, things that students are doing that maybe they don't always align with something that law enforcement has to be involved in. When a student receives a consequence for something that they've done, parents do have an opportunity to appeal that is where that opportunity for an individual look would be done. So a parent, this is our matrix, here's what our code of conduct, this is what our code of conduct is, this is what our matrix is, this is what your offense, this is what your consequence is. We must be very much systematic about that. Then we do have opportunities for appeals where a parent gets to have dialogue with the principal at the district level staff, which is Mr. Finelli, around the consequence that the student has received, or even the infraction as a whole, and we do look at those things individually. Sometimes the answer is no, the offense was appropriate, the consequence was appropriate, and then as a result, one of the things that we are doing that is better with communication is really identifying what are those events and tasks and items that are directly connected to referrals, because there are some things that students will not be able to participate in based on whatever offense they have done. And so we are making sure to communicate with families in advance so that they know what those events are, so that it's no confusion when the student does commit an offense that violates their ability to participate, that the families are more aware of that. And that's harder because that is individual to a school. It's not necessarily something that is just across the district. So that is an area that we reflected on last year after speaking with parents. Some parents didn't necessarily have issue with the code of conduct or the consequence. It was some of those no referral events that their children could not participate in, that they were not aware of.
Yeah. Well, and the thread, just my observation, because I think when this came up last time, I want to say it was a parent who emailed us that their student videotaped something on the bus thinking she was helping, right? Not realizing she's like now getting herself in trouble. That kind of feels like the thread, right? Like the theme of my student who's 11, 12, you know what I mean? They're like, they're getting their world figured out. That they did something or they said something, not really understanding the consequences of that. And so that just for me, Superintendent Moore, that's just an area that I think we can just probably
do better,
keep doing better. So anyway, thank you.
Yeah, we created a Know the Law video for kids, and we do it every year here through Mr. Finelli at the DJJ, and we actually have our school resource officers. That's why it has to be done every year, because the school resource officer does a segment from every school.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, but it's wonderful, and it does help because we are in a visual and audio society. It's as simple as that. Not as many people read as much as they should read, and I'm certain a good part of our parents do not read the code of conduct until it becomes important to them. Once it becomes important to them, then everybody reads it. It's just like all the things that you signed on a daily basis when you're making any kind of purchase or whatever, and you click the box. How many people really read all the fine print? Not too many, okay? My concern only about the code of conduct is there is so much material, and it's hard. It would be really hard to get all that stuff in. Our video is maybe I don't even think it's maybe 5 minutes, if that.
And it would be a highlights, like what are the themes of, you know, what are the things that we are seeing students having consequences for? So not
Yeah.
like every single piece.
Like we cover things like that, threats and things, and those are it's just that the parents that want to, that get involved, that are involved, and we have majority of them. It's the other ones that don't and never will, no matter what we do.
Right. I just would
And
love
you're gonna-
for.
It would be nice, but that's my concern, is the matter of content.
Yeah, as a board member, I would love to be able to say to any parent, you know what, we did this, we did this, we did this, we did this, right? Like I feel good that we have done everything to try to communicate the you know, a highlight of the rules, the full copy. I don't know that I feel that yet, right? That we have exhausted kind of every creative outlet or whatever. But to your point, Chair Massaro, we legally were covered. Yeah, we gave them a copy, and yeah, we're covered, right? And when you sign off on something as a customer and you just scroll through, that company is covered. But are we really doing what we need to do to make sure that they know?
My only suggestion with that amount of volume and content would be you'd have little vignettes on each topic.
Like mini messages would be great too.
Like vignettes on
Yeah,
each little topic.
Attention span.
Exactly. And so
under a minute, 30 seconds maybe.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, little vignettes about, you know, anything, any topic you pick, you want to put on there. You know, a lot of it would be, it doesn't really matter, but and have a ton of them.
Yeah.
That people could just click on and see it.
Like if it's a bus one, because not
Yeah.
everybody takes the bus.
Yeah.
So if it's a bus one, I can
Right.
click on.
And they
I
can
think
click on what they
we
want to
really
see.
need to, I don't see us embracing, say, YouTube so much as a district. I think we're at a disadvantage with that by just housing it only on our website. I think that, you know, as something to start moving in toward, right, is whenever we do these videos, let's start maybe putting them on a YouTube channel that says code of conduct, and it's just a bunch of, you know, 30
Little vignettes, short little.
And what happens is that not only can people go there directly as a resource, also when people when a parent just searches Flagler Schools on YouTube, those videos will just kind of pop up and they go, oh, look at that, I didn't know they had a video on that. So I just think it could be a great resource for other communication out there, for stuff that kind of stays the same for a period of time, that we're not having to redo all the time. Like that's a good place to get that information out.
And with the little vignette idea, then they can easily change them though. It's not like you have to go back
not a
and
major
do the whole
production,
thing.
right.
Just do that little vignette. If it change, because the laws and all change.
And we definitely can look at how we communicate and share information around our code of conduct, but also just, you know, reminding our families that, you know, we can't give them a little vignette of it all, right? We can, you know, we when we think about the student progression plan that was here today, you know, when we think about all the different types of plans that we have, we can't give them a little bit of it all. They have to know this is the document, this is where we can go. But there are things that we can improve, right? We can make sure that when a student receives a referral that we for sure are giving them the appeal process so that they'll know how to do that. If they wanted to do that, we can be better with communicating what our no referral events are and why those things are like that. So we can definitely do that, and we can look at communication and what things that we have in these videos, because I agree. Video messages for some, it's definitely something that they can pull up and play and have. But understanding that it's just a snippet. It's not comprehensive of it all.
It's just helping. And I realize this is totally your playground, so I'm not trying to, you know, weigh in. I just, it's a big thing, and
it's something that comes to us.
And something that you just said made me think of it. You know, I was as part of the Rimfire PTO, I attended the back to school for Rimfire, and a year ago, and there were so many parents who attended, which was fantastic. But there were like long lines, captive audience, right? Like parents just standing there in line waiting to talk to somebody about the bus or the schedule or the whatever. So I think that we have these moments where we can communicate with our parents, and whether it's Dr. Conklin's idea of, hey, at the beginning of the year, let's do this, or, you know, I think that there are some more creative solutions.
Yeah, absolutely, we can definitely.
So, again, your playground, but thank you for listening.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing it to
All
my
right, any
attention.
other old business? New business? Anybody?
I'm gonna bring up that I would love for us as a board to discuss, to relook at policies, for instance, overnight stays needing to come before for board approval, and is there anything else that, you know, we're kind of seeing recurring on the agendas, you know,
I'm just not sure that's not mandated.
So-
We have to do that for insurance purposes.
So what we can do, and it's going to take us a little bit of time, so you would
Yeah.
need to give us some time to do it, is we can look at some of our board policies that are not, that could be adjusted based on what is allowed through state statute
Right.
or
I think it is.
what is
I would
allowed
love
through
that.
insurance,
It is.
that we can
and
get
it is cool, but I love your idea.
We can definitely-
I think that, Superintendent Moore, I think that's worth the time.
Oh, absolutely.
Of what policies exist today that are absolutely tied to state statute, what is it, and based on your thoughts, what really does need to come before the board and what could maybe not come before the
And
board?
I think it also aligns with what our state board and Department of Education is currently doing as well. When you talk about how do you deregulate things, it's like, what are these things that we've mandated they do, but may not be currently, that it's not connected to statute, or maybe that statute has changed, but some of these areas haven't. And so it will give us an opportunity to review it. When I was the director of teaching and learning, we did go through all of the policies that did impact teaching and learning, and I think it just gives the staff too an opportunity to revisit policy so that we know what it actually says and not what we think it says, or whatever our practice has been that may or may not align to what is actually required. So we can do that. I can tell you that one of the things that we have done to help our meetings be more efficient is really looking at what things need to come through an informational, what things need to be agenda item. You know, you each have stated that our meetings have been more efficient in our time. Well, that's one thing that we've done that was allowable through your working board manual, that something like our assessment calendar, those things that are routine, that really not a lot of change can happen because they come directly from the state. Those things, unless they're brand new, those things should be coming through in an agenda item and not informational agenda and then to you at a board meeting. So we can look through policy and look at areas that we could improve our efficiency and the way that the board and the district work.
Yeah, I appreciate
Maybe it
that.
could just be something that we just read and look at, like, they don't have to present it, you know what I
No,
mean?
no, no,
Like-
we will look through it. We will go through and kind of identify some areas that we feel like would definitely help us be more
But
efficient.
it's tied to insurance, I'm sure of it too, because if you're sending kids out of state and there's an accident, something happens, we have to make sure we have approved everything.
Yeah.
There's reasons. there.
Definitely,
Yeah.
you know, I think we're looking at, well, your original comment was not about our students going out of state, but about our staff,
I
staff
was kind
going
of
out.
like all of the above.
It's-
If
yeah,
state
it's everything, I get
statute
you.
allows for the superintendent, I'm not saying there's no approval process.
What about if we did, what if for direction, and tell me if you think this is good, rather than limit this, if they're gonna do some work on looking to improve efficiencies, rather than keeping it tied to this one item, why don't we say, hey, why don't you guys start looking at many things that are not tied to statute, right, that you feel could really make the organization run more efficiently. We just do them because that's what we have done, right? And maybe bring several at a time to review, and then we can go through that and pick which ones make the case for why, and then we can rewrite the policies.
That is my request, that we
Yeah,
as a
I think
district
that's
go through
lovely.
those things.
And I think the timing, you know, of your contract
It's gonna take us some
starting,
time.
you know, I just think.
It's gonna take us some time to do that, but.
I think it's a good time.
I'm sure
to
if
look
you,
at it.
if you ask what around, if you send one email, what are some things that we could take out? A lot of people would
I'm
raise their
I'm
hands.
sure, I'm
You get some
sure.
responses.
Yeah.
I'm sure, because it's a headache sometimes for some of it, so we can do that.
Any other new business? All right, hearing none, we're gonna go down to public comment. Public comment.
Yeah, there's two, or there were two. There's a Miss Channon.
All right, come on, Chanel. Come on up.
All
multiple hats, staff that wear multiple hats, and it really is motivated by our attorney, Christy Gavin, and all the multiple hats she wears. And so I'm glad you guys were talking about adding on possibly another attorney, because she wears so many hats that it is hard for her to do it all. And then she kind of gets scrutinized when she tries to do something like write her own contract and do it appropriately by grabbing a template and doing so. And on top of it all, she's in here naming who's the next speaker, or turning off people's mics if they get out of hand, or emptying out the auditorium. So she wears so many hats that sometimes she really gets a lot of complaints because of it. So I'm glad you guys are looking at perhaps adding on to the dignity, because as you can see, the contract is for that of an attorney. And so when she has to wear so many hats and there's complaints, then you really have to look at, well, who's managing the hats? So that's what I have to say about that. And so since I have a little bit more time, I'm going to get back to the idea that we have City Council allows people to speak up front. We want to invite the public. Please put it on the agenda to allow people once again in the evening to speak up front openly, because once again, if it's not on the agenda, or those of us who follow the rules, we don't see it on the agenda, we won't speak, but the public will come, they'll come and they'll speak on a hot topic, and they'll break the rules, and those of us who follow the rules are kind of silenced. So I know you know what I'm talking about. I've spoke on it before. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And
then there's Dr. Yvette Etchell-Spano. And she's going to say thank you and introduction.
Welcome.
Yes, thank you, thank you. Hello, good afternoon. I'm Yvette Edgehill-Spano, and I am the Education Chair for the NAACP Unit 5147B. And I first wanted to start out saying thank you for our superintendent. It's been a pleasure, and we look forward, our Education Committee looks forward to working with her as well as with the board for collaboration, support, as well as ensuring that we empower our parents as well as make sure that our students thrive. The other thing is that we have an article out, I think it's called Touch Point, that actually sort of addressed one of the topics that you had mentioned with the code of conduct. We looked at the parent resource guide, and a lot of parents don't know that even exists. So we published that in an article, and it also included some of the things that parents can think about in supporting their child or children, and as well as guardians in the school system, and also have those communications with their children about things they can and cannot do. So I just wanted to let you know that. And again, thank you for this opportunity to meet you all, and hopefully we'll be doing more together. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you for what you do. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else have public comment? You didn't sign up? All right, hearing none. At this point then, I'm going to officially have to close comments. Anybody? Close
Just
comments.
real quick, wonderful block party. There's a lot of energy there, and the community forum in the evening was very informative, well attended, and I learned a lot from the feedback from the community, and I just wanted to thank Superintendent Moore for hosting that and doing such a great job with that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Not today.
Not today. Good. Yes, I would agree with what Will had to say, and it was nice to see at least the people there. And again, a lot of times we're preaching to the choir.
These are the people that do the right things, that try very hard. I mean, I love parents' rights, but with parents' rights come parent responsibilities. You know, and I think that's where things fall short. It's wonderful, these are their rights, but we've got to get people that are more involved to take and utilize them and have the responsibility to know their children. Because I think that's where we get a little lost every now and then. So that's all that I have. I'd like to thank everybody for today, and I'm going to officially adjourn today's meeting.